update video on the WooWoo, or should I say the Woo Pair. Yeah, I haven't done an update on this in a long time, and a lot has gone on, more specifically with the washer. Let's concentrate on that before we get to the dryer. Since about June, this washer's been completed, as in the not repairs, but servicing I had to do on it, and it's been trouble-free since. Now, to explain, I forgot to make a video when I did all this, but what happened was one day, came home and Harley was soaking something in the washer, and there was a puddle of water on the floor underneath of it. Well, it turns out the center post seals were also bad, and underneath the agitator does not fill up with water. It basically creates an air pocket, and if those seals are bad, it'll fill up underneath the agitator and spill over on top of the transmission and spin tube, clutch assembly, everything. And that's what was happening. So immediately we ceased use on this machine until we get it fixed. So for about a month, I had this whole thing torn apart. The basket out, everything was out. And I'll show you what all has been done. Now this is the flat belt that was on it when we got it, which is, it will work, but it doesn't generate woo-woos. This is the original basket drive. The clutches, springs, everything are still on it, but the tube itself, it's not corrosion. I mean, it is, but it's actually etched into there. So if I put this basket drive back in, it would chew up the brand new seals. So I got a brand new basket drive for it. But trying to remove the old seals, and I also changed the bearings in it too, without the original bearing / seal pull or removal tool was pain in the butt. I want to insert a clip here of what I had to do here. Here's the audio of it. Taking a rotary hammer and a chisel, and while carefully making sure not to get touch the center post, I basically did that for about 2 hours to get the original seals and bearings out, which are right here. The bearings were dry, the seals were shot. Now, this is after 40 years of use, mind you, so it was neglected. So, got that all put back together. Got proper Whirlpool touch-up paint for it, touch up any nicks and marks. That's all for that. I did manage, there are two good parts, the top agitator seal and this other seal here were still good, but I'm saving that. Original box for FSP parts. There we go. And the final thing I had to do, which was like around August or so, bought a new snubber pad for it because it kept going off balance with some heavy loads. And that's all it needed. The snubber pad was not as effective as what it once was. And since the original video made on this, as me as the burr, this machine is much quieter now. The woo-woos are still there, but the whole machine overall is very quiet. All I hear is the hum of the motor and the woo-woos. Now, the dryer. It's not done yet, but I figured might as well do a video now, then I can show me working on it. It's good enough to use for now. Now, back up. This was a Craigslist find. Originally, I think it was $60, then they dropped it to $50, and then they dropped it to $30, I think, and then we went and got it. It belonged to an elderly man who had recently passed, and their children were basically cleaning out their house. Somebody had the identical washer, or near identical, and it already sold on Craigslist. The dryer was still there, so it got separated, but now they're sort of paired. It's not quite the exact dryer. I mean, it is, but it isn't. This is a 1979 dryer, 70 series, mind you. This is a 1978 70 series. The only difference it's not even mechanical, it's not even electrical. There's only one cosmetic difference. Where it says wrinkle guard, the 78 model had the symbol for wrinkle guard instead of spelling it out. That's the only difference. So technically these are a matched pair. The dryer isn't perfect yet. There is some paint and rust issues, but it's very minor. I did polish it up though. As you can see, it's just as shiny as the washer. It was a real mess when I first got it. I had the whole thing apart. I cleaned it thoroughly. And it's never been serviced in its life. Despite that, the amount of lint buildup wasn't too bad for 40 years. It was still in regular use by the people there. I mean, they even showed it was still plugged in, hooked up, and everything. Everything electrically worked on it, except for one thing. That was the timer. That was one of the things in the Craigslist ad. The timer didn't work. The motor did for the timer, but the gear was stripped and it didn't turn. You could hear the motor turning. So we got a brand new, well, not brand new, it was a used timer that works just fine. Now like I said, this isn't done yet, but the next item we need to get is the lint screen. The lint screen itself's fine, but the cover for it is gone. That's how we received it. And this string was already attached to it when we got it, so the previous owner had done that. The only other thing I had to do to it, these steel cables that connect to the springs that hold the door were broken. So those are brand new. The springs are still original to the dryer, but they're strong. Watch this. I just touched it with my finger and it goes up. Also, from when I was little, doesn't that look like the composition books? Yeah, that's what I always thought when I was little. There's the full model number of this thing. 1979. It is a 70 series. Inside of the drum, it is a little worn on the paint, but that's no big deal. It's just in the dryer. In a drum, I should say. That's 40 years of drying things. And this is almost exactly the pair my parents bought in 1980, except theirs was Harvest Gold. This has, of course, the smaller door, which I would prefer because it matches their dryer. The other door option would have been a full width door, it'd be like a folding shelf, basically. This I prefer because it's pretty much exactly what my parents had. Also, being a 70 series, it does not have a drum light. But you can see where the drum light would go right there. And another oddity about this unit, and same with my parents' unit, you know, it is an automatic, has to have an automatic cycle. The oddity part is it's a single temperature unit. You get high heat or air. There's no delicate or low. If it had that option, there is a spot right here where it would have went. That's the odd part, but it is a matched pair. That's how it was sold, even back then with my parents' pair. Now that said, another oddity is the automatic cycle is based on the thermostats. If the heating element's on, the timer does not advance. If the heating element turns off, it starts to advance. It's actually pretty accurate and does a really good job. The higher end models, believe it or not, because of Sears solid state, would say solid state on here, and that actually had a moisture sensor in the drum. This, again, is just based off of what the thermostat's doing, you know. But it does a pretty good job. You put it on the asterisk and your clothes come out dry. That's another thing I like about this. Putting a lot of 90s and newer dryers on the asterisk didn't quite do it. And same with, unfortunately, the Speed Queen. The default setting's near dry. You have to put it all the way on max to get your clothes fully dry. This, the asterisk, is the proper fully dry. And then you can go up higher than that if you're drying bulky items that are real thick, like say a pillow or a comforter. So I like this. This actually dries properly. Also, to note, it's an electric dryer, of course. It's 5.5 kilowatt, and the Speed Queen is a gas dryer that is rated for about 6.6 kW. Despite this having more heating power, the Kenmore takes either roughly about the same amount of time, or it's actually a bit faster. It is a very good design. And to this date, believe it or not, Whirlpool still sells versions of this dryer, you know, that's sort of back to the original design. Go into Lowe's or Home Depot and look at their entry level, look at a Whirlpool based entry level dryer, whether it be a Roper, an actual Whirlpool, or even a Maytag. If you see this lint screen on top, open up the door and you'll see this exact back plate. They haven't changed. I mean, it's almost the same unit. It is a very good design. Although the vintage one has much thicker gauge steel, etc., etc. Now, I mentioned the only things left to do on this for repair. Get a new one of the lint screen for it. I did have it apart. The rollers and everything are lubricated. The belt tensioner has been cleaned and lubricated, but it needs replaced. It hasn't been serviced or lubricated in 40 years. It was very stiff when I first got it. I lubricated it, and it's somewhat free-ish, but it's still stiff. Sometimes if the dryer sits for a bit, you turn it on, and it'll give a squeal sound for like a second or two, and then it stops. I will be replacing that in the near future, and then we'll be doing a video on that. And the belt appears to be original, and there's only one small hairline crack in it, but the belt looks like it's brand new somehow. It definitely was never serviced. I had the machine apart, and it doesn't look like anybody ever touched the inside. That's this quality there. I mean, 40 years, and those minor things are on, but the initial part of the dryer still works fine. This is the original power cord too. It doesn't even get warm. Now, I ran this 240 volt 30 amp circuit like this, but I'm reusing some existing plastic anchors. That's why this isn't straight. I only have one screw holding on and double-sided tape on the other side. Mind you, again, this is temporary because we're going to be finishing this room hopefully very soon. I'm going to start over here at the bathroom and laundry areas, so it'll get a proper outlet. See how there's excess cable or wire up there? That's so I can route it down and mount it properly. For now, this is a temporary setup, but still proper nonetheless. It's a 3-prong outlet, yes. And another thing I had to do, I added a second dryer vent. I don't have a 4-inch core bit, so I actually took the hammer drill and a 1/2 inch or 5/8 inch bit, and on the inside I just took a 4-inch hole saw and drilled it out. I'll show that picture here. And then on the outside I took actually on the inside I drew some pilot holes. Then I went on the outside and continued drilling with the hammer drill. That took about 1 to 2 hours. Then I knocked the rest out with a hammer, and it made a perfect circle without, and I put the new thing, and I'll show that later in the video in operation. So yeah, we have 2 exhaust vents here. I'm going to be adding a third one, same type, for the bath fan. I got that laying there right now. But yeah, we actually have the bath fan is going to be this. Now right now it's on the ceiling, but we're going to mount it on the wall right here, because this is also could be used in a kitchen too. So we're going to mount this on the wall. The duct goes up, over and out the front. In fact, I bought the same vent because it uses a 4-inch duct, And I'm probably going to add a third vent on this side here to in case if I need to add a third dryer in the future. Because when I do this laundry room, I'm going to accommodate a third washer dryer pair, not down here, but going this way. One here, one there. Because then you walk in, this will be like a little quote-unquote vestibule. And you walk in, they'll come out to about here. There'll be a wall, but then you walk over here and up. So yeah, that's the 1979 Kenmore 70 series dryer. And one more thing I'll mention before we get started. While we were looking for the matching dryer for this WooWoo, what we kept finding was the 60 series. As in, yeah, everything was proper. It still had the cursive font, but it did not have an automatic cycle. It was the next line down. This is what would be considered a lower middle of the line model. The 60 series wasn't quite bottom of the line, but it lacked more features such as the automatic cycle. It was just a time cycle that went up to like 90 minutes, I think. I can't recall. And this one place we go to, Construction Junction, not only had that, but it was gas. Now, yeah, you're saying, why didn't you get a gas dryer? I just wanted electric to keep it the same as what my parents had. Plus electric, you know, I like, electrical stuff. But there was a electric version of the dryer, also 60 series, no automatic, but it was like a 1983-84 model with the digital font. And I love the cursive font on these, so this is close enough. Like I said, it's pretty much a matched pair. And as for the dryer paint job, I mean, it is shiny, as you can see. I cleaned it up very well. Once we get things squared away, I'm going to take this down to an automotive shop, and I'm going to get it repainted. You know, I'm going to get it done professionally. You know, make it look real good. The washer is near perfect. I mentioned all the changes I had to do. So now we're going to do a load of towels so you can hear how the machine operates now, followed up by use of the dryer and showing the vent outside. Now everything about these washers I love because I used to hang out in front of our Harvest Gold pair. I just remember everything about them. Even just starting like this, you push the timer knob in, just the sound of it going through the different settings. Has that distinct sound for this unit. We'll do a full 14 minutes just because. This is not going to show a full wash video, but merely just it operating briefly. Pull it out. That sound it makes in this tub, how the spray fills like it does. So, let's pour this in. Could have poured it in first, but I didn't. So yeah, now we'll fill and wait for it to start agitating. While it's filling, I'll mention that these are in a climate-controlled dry basement. Even without the dehumidifier, the humidity only gets up to about 60-65%. With the dehumidifier, I get it down to about mid-40s. So, no chance for any further rust. It was in a rather damp old basement, this poor thing. That's why there's some rust on it, but it's very minor. It's only surface rust, and it's totally repairable. This Kenmore has almost no rust on it anywhere, and it'll stay that way. Now you see how I blew? It burped. That means your tub here, your center post seals and your agitator seals are good. That bloop was it burping from the air pocket. Now, typically all you hear on this machine is the motor humming and the WooWoos. So yeah, we'll check back in about 12 minutes right before it decides to drain. And closing the lid makes it even quieter. We're in neutral drain. Listen how quiet it is now. You hear ooh, 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 a little bit of motor hum, but that's it. Oh, by the way, when I forgot to mention, while the transmission, I mentioned water was leaking on top of it. Luckily, the transmission was not compromised. The oil in the transmission was still fine and at the proper level. Very quiet. Now put some fabric softener in. Okay, we're ready to dry. Lint Screen is already cleaned. Just do this for now. I always love that sound these make too. It is clean. So now we'll just turn the timer to the asterisk. Hear that little bit of squill when it started? That's the tensioner pulley. You need to replace that. But once it starts, it doesn't make any noise. And so that's it. You have automatic with wrinkle guard, where it'll keep tumbling on air only. And it does have a buzzer. The buzzer's about right there. So it's automatic. You also have a time cycle and air and push to start. That's pretty much it. It's a 70 series, but it's a very basic dryer. But it's the same one my parents had, basically. And other than that little bit of the squeal when it first starts up because it needs replaced, it's a very quiet dryer, even compared to the Speed Queen. Very quiet dryer. And not much else more to say. It does its job very well. Put the lid back down on this. So yeah, that's the Kenmore pair. And here's the vent outside, right next to the original one that was installed at the house back in 1971 or 1972. And so there you have it, the 1979 Kenmore 70 series dryer. And by the time, I would say probably in the next few weeks or so, I'm going to try to get the tensioner and another lint screen with the top on it. And I'll add a new belt tool while I'm at it, and like new. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Click like, subscribe, and